If you want to create a grid in Gimp, there are actually two easy ways to do it, depending on what you need. In this video, I'll show you how to make a permanent grid that becomes part of your image and a temporary grid that only helps you line things up while you work. Both methods are simple, beginner-friendly, and very useful for design, layout, and photo editing. And if this tutorial helps you out, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Gimp tips and software tutorials. Let's start with the first method, which is the permanent grid. This is the one you want if you need the grid lines to actually be drawn onto the image, so they stay visible after you export. First, go to the Layers panel and click the New Layer icon. When the dialog box appears, name the layer Grid so it's easy to find later. For the Fill option, choose Transparency. This is important because it gives you a clean layer for the grid without adding any background color. Now that the layer is ready, go up to the top menu and click Filters, then Render, then Pattern, and finally Grid. This opens the grid settings window. Here you can control exactly how your grid looks. In the width and height boxes, enter the spacing you want between each line. For example, if you want a square grid, you could type 50 pixels for both width and height. If you want perfectly even squares, make sure the chain link icon is locked so the values stay matched together. Next, adjust the line width. A line width of 1 pixel gives you a very thin, clean grid, while 2 pixels makes it a little more visible. You can also choose the color of the grid lines depending on the look you want. Once everything looks right, click OK. Gimp will draw the grid directly onto that layer. If the grid lines look too bright or too bold, you can always go back to the Layers panel and lower the opacity slider on that grid layer. That gives you more control and lets you blend the grid into your design more naturally. Now let's move on to the second method, which is the temporary guide grid. This one is perfect if you just want a visual blueprint while you're working. It's ideal for aligning text, shapes, icons, or photo elements, and the best part is that it will not show up in your final exported image. To do this, go to the top menu and click Image, then Configure Grid. This opens the grid configuration window for the entire canvas. Here you can set the spacing for the grid by adjusting the spacing width and spacing height. For example, if you want smaller cells, you could use 32 pixels. If you want larger blocks, you can increase the values to match your project. Once you've chosen the spacing you want, click OK. After that, go to View and make sure Show Grid is turned on. As soon as it's enabled, the grid lines will appear on your canvas. You can now use them as a guide while moving objects around, resizing elements, or making precise layout decisions. And again, this grid is only for viewing while you edit, so it won't be included in your final image export. So to recap, if you want a grid that becomes part of the image, use the permanent grid method with a new layer and the render grid filter. If you just need a working guide, use the canvas grid through image and view settings. Both are great tools, and once you know how to use them, your workflow in Gimp becomes much faster and more accurate. If this video helped you create a grid in Gimp, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.